thing that happened to my daughter is what happened to Whitney. There's only one person that was around both occasions.
You won't say his name. Nick Gordon is who you're referring to.
I won't say his name.
At 3:55 p.m. this afternoon, Whitney Houston was pronounced at the Beverly Hilton Hotel.
We all remember that headline. Bobby Brown, hunched over, his voice breaking, finally admitting the one thing no one in Whitney Houston's circle had ever dared to say on camera. I blame myself for a lot of things. That single confession hit like a meteor in the music world. Suddenly, decades of whispers and conspiracy theories weren't just buried in fan forums. They were out in the open, on record. Yes, we've seen remorse before, but this was different. This wasn't a polished PR apology crafted for damage control. This was raw. It was the sound of a man practically throwing himself to the wolves, saying, "Go ahead, take your best shot." And of course, the world did exactly that. Why now? Why rip open this old wound? People everywhere are scrambling to connect the dots. And if Bobby's confession was meant to cleanse his conscience, it may have blown up in his face. Because let's be real, he's not the only one with something to lose if the story gets rewritten. Within hours of his words going viral, you could feel the panic ripple across the industry. This wasn't just fan chatter. It bled straight into the marble boardrooms of music's so-called untouchables. Suddenly, names like Diddy and Clive Davis, two titans carved into the very foundation of pop culture, were moving like men who just heard their names whispered in witness protection files. Diddy's legal troubles are already headline material, but it's Clive Davis's unease, the quiet panic of a man who's always been untouchable, that's sending real shivers through Hollywood. It's the cold, clinical details of Whitney Houston's final hours that still send a chill through the spine. Details Bobby Brown can't escape, no matter how many tell-alls or reality specials he signs onto. Whitney was discovered, lifeless, submerged in that Beverly Hilton suite. The official record hasn't changed. An accidental drowning, worsened by years of unhealthy choices, and a life spinning dangerously out of control. But for anyone who has followed this tragedy, one image refuses to fade. The sound of music and laughter echoing from just a few floors below, while a coroner's team worked in silence upstairs. Yes, Clive Davis's infamous pre-Grammy party carried on as scheduled. Guests clinked glasses, posed for photos, and swayed to the beat while Whitney's body lay upstairs for nearly 9 hours. Whitney would have wanted the music to go on, Davis declared from the stage, his expression carved in rehearsed sorrow. But did he truly believe those words? Or was the show simply too valuable to stop? We're left asking, what kind of world allows a mentor, someone celebrated for discovering and protecting legends, to keep the party alive while the brightest star in his universe had just faded a few floors above? If that was loyalty, we'd hate to imagine betrayal. Did no one pause to consider how it looked? Even now, the optics remain damning, and the deeper you dig, the worse it gets, because insiders aren't just whispering about bad taste and awkward timing. They're hinting at something far more sinister, a so-called insurance plan Clive Davis allegedly held over Whitney. In hushed tones, industry veterans describe a shadow arrangement that gave Davis a grip over her career, her choices, even her movements. Former label execs, ex-road managers, and even Houston's own family have suggested that Clive's influence stretched well beyond contracts and royalty checks. They paint a picture of suffocating control, a toxic dependency that could trap even the most gifted artist in a cycle of fear and self-destruction. Was Whitney truly free to walk away? Or were her every steps tugged by invisible strings that only pulled tighter with time? The scene was all too familiar. A scatter of white crystalline residue, faded post-it notes from a more innocent time, prescription bottles shuffled around by hands that never signed the police report. There was a tragic symmetry to it all, not only in how Whitney's life ended, but in how the story was scrubbed clean, sanitized for public consumption. Yet those closest to her, Bobby Brown included, never fully accepted the official narrative. In one of his clearer reflections, Bobby insisted Whitney had been fighting hard to stay sober. He blamed heartbreak, not chemicals, for her downfall. And now, with this latest confession, the question lingers. Is Bobby shielding someone else? Or is he finally done carrying the weight of everyone's secrets? And then there's Diddy, lurking in the shadows. Once the brash king of bad boy, Diddy was ushered into the industry's highest circles by none other than Clive Davis. By his own account, Clive decided hip-hop belonged in the pop mainstream after a single meeting with a 23-year-old Sean Combs, a move that changed music forever. Their alliance never stopped raising eyebrows. Fast forward to today, and Diddy's legal rap sheet reads like a scandal checklist. Yet somehow, his seat at Clive's table has never wobbled, even while others were cast aside. Industry veterans whisper, this isn't coincidence. They suggest a darker truth, that Diddy and Clive operate under a pact of mutual insurance, each holding secrets over the other that guarantee permanent protection, no matter the lawsuits, no matter the headlines. Whitney's body wasn't removed until just before 1 a.m., long after the last party guests had stumbled home. And the timeline itself raises questions. She was found unresponsive at 3:43 p.m., declared gone at 3:55. Police arrived in less than 2 minutes, almost as if they were already expecting trouble. Yet through it all, the music never stopped. The party never paused. The only public acknowledgement of tragedy was a scripted tribute from the very man whose protection was supposed to matter most. So was this simply business as usual? Or was it something far more calculated? A carefully staged distraction, a media circus designed to steer attention away from the real question. How could a superstar fall so far, so fast, under the watch of men who swore they loved her? Some of the more explosive allegations are now creeping out of the underground. Jaguar Wright, a singer notorious for her unfiltered industry exposés, has gone public with claims that Clive Davis sacrificed Whitney Houston and her daughter Bobby Christina to secure control over their legacies. She even suggests that Davis's infamous vault of secrets may hold far more than unreleased tracks. These claims, of course, remain unproven and dismissed by many as wild conspiracy. But the very fact that such theories are gaining traction speaks volumes about today's climate, an era where the public seems more than ready to believe the darkest possibilities about its idols. We can't ignore the chilling parallels between Whitney's death and her daughter Bobby Christina's fate. Found unconscious in a bathtub just 3 years later, she spent months in a coma before passing away. Even the method felt like a message, an echo too precise to dismiss. Nick Gordon, once seen as Bobby Christina's protector, was ultimately found liable for her death, but not before he claimed that Whitney herself had once saved her daughter from a nearly identical scene on the eve of her own demise. If there's a script to this family tragedy, it reads like a series of mirrored disasters, repeating patterns, the same shadows circling back, and at the edges of every act, the same names linger. Bobby, Clive, Diddy, each with a role to play, each watching as the story spirals on from just off stage. Officially, there was no foul play. The coroner closed the file, and the headlines moved on, until Bobby's confession detonated the story back into public life. Industry insiders had always murmured about the gaps. An ID removed from a wallet before police arrived. Prescription bottles shifted as if by careful hands. A sweet cleaned just enough to look plausible, but never truly spotless. The coroner's report said the substances in Whitney's system weren't necessarily lethal on their own, only devastating when layered over years of dependency, and crucially, heartbreak. It's that heartbreak Bobby keeps returning to. The same heartbreak he says later broke his daughter. That repetition is the part nobody can shrug off. For years, Bobby dodged blame, snapped at reporters, even commodified his private pain for reality TV. Now something has changed. Is this sudden honesty a last-ditch search for redemption? Or a strategic move in a far bigger game? Is it a warning fired at the people who kept quiet, while Whitney, the woman they professed to protect, was left to drown in full view? One thing cuts through the noise. Bobby Brown refuses to remain the scapegoat. He's speaking, and with every word, the old story unravels a little more. The question that lingers is simple and brutal. What does he know? And who was really pulling the strings? The night Whitney Houston's star fell from the sky, one absence stood out above the rest. Bobby Brown, nowhere to be seen. Stay curious, stay questioning. And remember, the truth always finds its way out. Until next time.